All right. Well, this is our third installment.
Third? Yeah.
Third installment of our board meeting recap for the WELD RE5J Board of Education. I'm the president of the Board of Education, Michael Wales.
I'm Jeremy Scott, treasurer for the Board of Education.
And so, we just want to get into a recap of our meeting last night, which was September 15th. Mm-hmm. How fast this month goes. So we, as you may have already guessed or known, that right now we're kind of doing what we call our school tour meetings. So each week or each meeting actually, not each week, but each meeting we go to a different school in the school district. We have dinner with the staff. They give us a little presentation, and then we have our board meeting there at the school. This past week, we were at Pioneer Ridge Elementary School and had a nice presentation from that staff, and they actually gave us a little book. I don't know, can I plug the Stick Together? It's a book that they've been using in their building about team building, and so they shared copies with us at the board and kind of gave us a little bit background on it. And I started reading it last night when I got home. It's a great book. I love these type of leadership parable, fable style stories. And then we got really cool bookmarks made by the students. And I am now pre-Dent, not president, but pre-Dent Wales, and that's fine because everybody messes my name up all the time anyway, so I'm okay with that. But it was a great time with that staff. Again, really appreciative to them allowing us to come in there and host us. And they did a great job, and it was so nice to spend some time with them and have dinner. It was,
and we learned that PRE has a school song. I didn't know they had a school song.
I didn't know that.
Apparently they do.
And as a lifelong resident and a product of our educational system here, Roosevelt was the only school that ever had a song when I was in school. Okay. So
we'll have to write an LOL school song.
Yeah.
There you
go. We should maybe do a contest about that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So during our celebration time, we did get a visit from some amazing kids who are part of our FFA program at Roosevelt High School who are heading off to national competition in dairy cow judging.
Yes.
Which on one hand that's amazing. Of course, in this part of the world we have a lot of dairy cows, so I mean you would think it's something we're good at. And so that part's great. I also think that they reiterated again that something that I really appreciate about the FFA program is it also teaches a lot of other really important skills like public speaking and everything. And I've always been really impressed with the students who come to speak to us especially from the FFA program, because they are always well spoken. They are and do such a good job. So I think we can think about that program in kind of a narrow way,
yes.
And it does, focus obviously mostly on agriculture, but there's so much other like life skill development that goes along with it. And so we are proud of those kids and proud of that program. I think it's a cornerstone at the school.
Absolutely. It's such a strong program, and Mr. Hopkins has done such a wonderful job with that. I think, what did he say, 20 years now?
Yes, 20 years.
20 years with that program. But yeah, that's true. The ancillary product or the auxiliary product of all that is, I mean, these kids, when they come and present, they're so good. Their public speaking is so good, and their presence in front of a crowd is pretty awesome. So
yeah, they do a good job. All right. Report to the superintendent's office.
Didn't have a whole lot
No.
from the superintendent's office this week. Things are trucking along pretty good in the schools, and so she's staying very busy with that. She is still being very open and engaging with the community, which is great. We're getting a lot of great feedback. She's sharing a lot with us, a lot of the conversations that she's having in the community. So, please feel free to don't overwhelm her. But she's probably gonna say, "Oh, don't overwhelm." But feel free to reach out to her with questions and comments, because she is very receptive.
She's been a true blessing.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been a true blessing to the district, especially right now and everything we're going through. I really appreciate the way she's handled things and reached out to folks in a very proactive way. And I think across the board, everyone's been appreciative of that.
Yeah,
that's good. We also had our report from our chief financial officer. We get this, I think once a month we get an update from him. And one of the things that I was reminded of as he was reporting is, we have a school district budget. This budget is based on our predictions of what we think is going to happen, basically, and primarily the number of students we think we are going to have. One of the things about funding of schools in Colorado is it's almost completely dependent on how many students you have at your school. And so I want to remind everybody that, in the first part of October, Count Day is coming up. And that actually is a really, really important day because because a student can only be physically present in one place at one time, Colorado uses a count day system to avoid students being counted in multiple schools. So you have to be physically present on that day in order to be counted and allow us to put you into our census that then derives how many schools, how much funding we get. So our total budget really is driven by how many students we think we are going to have, and then that number kind of gets set during count day. So we do keep track ahead of, keep track as we're going towards count day. Right now we are under, the district is actually, there are more kids in the district this year than last. So the district did grow, not by quite as much as I think was originally estimated. So count day is going to be really, really important. We don't want to miss any kids this time, because that really does. Every child comes with dollars attached for the district. So it's just really important that people be there for that.
Yep. I was going to say something else about that, and I can't remember what it was now. I think we were talking about later in his report, if you want to go on to that at all. Just that our property tax revenue collections are up to where they should be this time of year. Last year they were off a little bit. One of the things we brought up in the meeting last night was that you may hear us discuss a interest-free loan program through the state of Colorado. And we talked a little bit about that last night and just tried to explain that to folks, because I know that can be confusing when you hear that, hey, the school district's taking out a loan. How does that work? And essentially this is our income is based on student count, but it also comes through property tax and property tax collection. So as those property taxes are collected, those revenues are paid to the school district. But it's up and down. Sometimes the money comes in at once and we get a lot of money, and then there's months where we get hardly anything. And unfortunately, our expenses kind of go like this. They're consistent. And so the state of Colorado has a great program for school districts, and it's I like to think of it as a cash flow loan program. But essentially, they loan us money to make sure that we meet our obligations every month. And then we pay it back as soon as we get one of those high spots. We do have to pay the money back every year before the close of the year. And we've participated in this program for years and years and years. So this isn't anything new that we're doing. But I do like to clarify that's what this program is when we're talking about loan dollars from the state. And it's an interest-free program. And it's really just to help us equalize our income stream to our outflow stream.
Yeah, and it's not unique to us by any means. That program exists because I think pretty much, I would guess most every school district takes advantage of it. And it's a nice program, and it helps us kind of smooth things out without having to keep our own giant reserves or, whatever.
Right.
It really does kind of even things out. So, yeah. I think it's RLH.
Okay. So we did get a report on our current bond projects, our building projects, and it's always great to hear that we are on time and on budget. If you've been out to the Elwell site, they are pouring footings and starting to pour foundations. We have heard that our steel has been secured, and it is on its way. So we should start seeing some vertical development on that facility. There is going to be a groundbreaking for the new Roosevelt High School. October 4th?
October 4th.
Yes, before the football game is what I understand. And there's going to be a barbecue as well. So just keep an eye on the district's Facebook page and the local media for more information on that. But we'd love to have the community come out and be a part of that.
Yep. And I believe there's a drone video of that we're getting our hands on of the Elwell being poured, which is pretty exciting. I remember all the trucks going up and down. It was good time. I think the big thing there though is on time and on budget. All the projects so far, if not a little under, which is the other big piece of work we did that can seem a bit procedural, but is important in the meeting as well. Was really voting on the amendments to the contracts, and these aren't additional. And so we vote on amendments to the contracts. This is is basically setting the actual final price for that particular piece of work for both Elwell and Roosevelt High. And what that lets us do is then that kind of locks in that piece. It's all money that was already budgeted. It's not new money by any means, but it locks in that piece of the work and then allows us to start making decisions about, okay, so now we know exactly how much this piece is going to cost, how much exactly this piece is going to cost. All of our projects have some amount of contingency dollars built in to the budget to make sure that, if something unexpected happens in the way, if something we're planning to do, once we start moving dirt, if the dirt doesn't look the way that we expect it to and we've got to make some changes, there's always contingency dollars built into the project. And as we secure those amendments and secure the dollars, that frees up the contingency dollars, the ones we didn't need to use, so that we can start thinking about what other things we may do. All of our projects have additional things that are in the that are kind of in the if we have the funds category, and so we either can start looking at those pieces and enhancements to the buildings that we're building, or if we're fully meeting the expectation and obligation for that building, even moving some of those dollars to other projects. So as we secure those amendments and secure those dollars, that lets us start thinking about, okay, as this bit of contingency money frees up or this bit of contingency money frees up, where do we want to redeploy those funds, either to, again, enhance that existing building or that existing project, or move those dollars to another project. So when we start seeing those things come in, they might seem procedural, but they're actually really exciting because that means we now know, we know what this is going to cost now. So we know we're going to have, this piece over here freed up.
Yep.
And then we get to start doing some real fun stuff.
Yeah, and it has been kind of interesting to watch how this has all played out because, as everybody knows, there's building supply, material shortages, craftsman shortages. I mean, there's
trucking shortages, truckers.
Yeah, to deliver the products actually to that. I mean, that's one of the hangups right now. We're crossing our fingers with on the steel is it actually being able to be delivered on time. We have it. We've secured the product. It's now can we get it delivered on time, but. It's been interesting because I was concerned that we would see these radical increases in prices on building products, and we have in some areas. But we've also seen some decreases in some areas, and it's interesting to see how everything is still kind of balanced out to where we're at those budgets that we originally thought we were working with, and that hats off to the design team and our owner's rep. These guys really know their business when it comes to building schools and can identify, what these costs are going to be so that we can plan very efficiently how this money will be spent.
Yeah, and I do think one of the things a comment that was made by our owner's rep kind of quickly that I think is important too is he talked about so the owner's rep is sort of our person that we contract with that really works day to day with our designers and the builders, and one of the things they're doing is pushing our designers and builders to say, okay, what can you move faster on? If something else is going to take a little bit longer, what do you move faster on in order to keep the total project, again, on time and on budget? And that's one of their major functions, and they've been just doing an amazing job for us.
Yeah, absolutely amazing job.
So, all right, so the big one.
Yeah, the big one.
You want to start us off?
Sure.
Okay.
So we did have a discussion about the our COVID updates and our current rates, our masking, and anything and everything associated with that. We had a number of people show up for public comment who spoke very passionately about their positions on both sides of how the district is responding to this new Delta variant and an increase in our community of our positivity rate increasing. And I was so appreciative to have that feedback from the community and have them spend some time with us and share that with us. And again, I'll give a plug out there. If you do have comments and you can't make a meeting, you can always send your public comments to listen@weldre5j.org. Those messages get distributed to the board. They also become part of the public record. So it's kind of your virtual opportunity to attend a board meeting and have your comments shared on the record. But again, just really appreciative of the community input Sometimes we do work in a vacuum, and there have been board meetings where nobody shows up, and so it is always nice to have people show up, and then to be able to have an opportunity to talk with them after the meeting, and have more of a personal conversation about some of these issues.
Yeah, I want to echo. Really appreciative of those who are able. I know the meetings are sometimes long and not everybody can stay the whole time, but those who are able to stick around and chat afterwards, I really valued those conversations with folks. And I made this comment last night, and I will make it again. I really also appreciate, while I know this is a passionate subject for many because we're talking about kids. Sometimes we're talking about our kids and our neighbors' kids. How do you not be passionate about that? Absolutely. But, despite the passion, I think we have remained very civil in our dialogue, in our discourse, and last night I think we saw that. And I think that's a hallmark of our community, and something that we need to hold on to and make sure that we don't lose as part of this, as we navigate this thing that nobody had ever thought we would have to navigate.
Right.
So I think kind of keeping our civility, even as we disagree, is going to be important, and that's what I've seen on display, and I really want to applaud that. We did get an update with some numbers, and that's available in board docs. I think my one takeaway from that is when we decided to bring masking back to the district, it was in trade of quarantine. That was the goal, was to quarantine less kids. At our last board meeting, we were looking at 300 or 10% of our district quarantine. And I'll tell you, that put me into a bit of a panic personally, because that's not a trend that is sustainable for long at all. Under the old system, that we have not been required under the new system. So that was the goal, and I think so far we're meeting it. But I think the other thing that was shared was that the intention was, and it will be, that this is a very temporary solution. It was the thing we could do at that moment to curtail a potential where we started maybe even seeing 20 to 25% of our students quarantined, at which point, you have to wonder if it just threatens the entire district, at that point. So, I'm gonna President Williams, you talk about your
Sure.
proposal that I was really supportive of.
Yeah, and just to kind of dovetail into what you're saying, not only is it our student population that becomes a concern, it's also our staff, and it's just because, again, just like everything else that's going on in the world right now, we are skating on a very dangerous line of being staff short, because we don't have the substitute pool that we used to have in order to, if we have staff members who are out, that causes a really severe issue within the district. But as Reverend Scott said, we've been looking at some temporary measures. We really do need, though, to look at some long-term strategy on how we deal with COVID and how we deal really with infectious and contagious disease in general. And it's probably just as good a time as any to address the whole ball of wax as opposed to one thing. And so the end goal in all of this, obviously, is to keep our kids in school. The last thing we want to do is go into quarantines. And the ultimate last thing we want to do is go back to a full online program or even a hybrid system. While I think we made great strides last year in that respect. I mean, with what we had to work with, I think we were able to accomplish quite a bit. The overwhelming consensus we're getting back from the community, and even seeing some of it in some of our test scores, is that it was not the ideal situation for a student to learn in, and the ideal situation is in the classroom. And so that's the end goal, is to try to keep as many kids in the classroom as possible. And so one of the things I would like to do, and what I proposed to the board last night, was essentially the creation of a task force that would involve a lot of the stakeholders in our educational process to provide us some feedback on how we can develop ideas and strategies and techniques to weather this storm, because it's going to be a long-term, and when I say long-term, I mean it's long-term, because I think we're going to be with COVID or a variant of COVID or the flu probably for the rest of our natural lives. And we really do need to have a strategy on how we deal with that. And so what we're trying to put this task force together actually rather quickly. This would involve obviously staff members, administrators. I think Reverend Scott and I will probably be the board members on this. But we also would like to get some community members involved as well. we have identified some individuals who have been very supportive on both sides of the arguments on how we handle this, and who we feel would be assets to this. And so we are going to extend some personal invitations to those individuals. But I also do want to kind of make just an open invitation. Again, if you're interested in being a part of this, send an email to that listen@weldre5j.org. And we can get back with you for some information on this. We are really looking though for people who are serious and are willing to compromise on some things. I mean, I get it that we all have pretty strong beliefs around some of this stuff, but I think if we can all get together and we can find some compromises. One of the things that Reverend Scott mentioned last night, and I've said this on numerous occasions about other things in our district, is that we're still a small enough district where we have some flexibility to be creative in the solutions that we find. We're not so large that the economies of scale keep us from doing the things that may actually work, regardless of whatever it is we're talking about, but especially when we're talking about things around COVID and the flu.
Yeah, and even since our last meeting, or the meeting we had 2 weeks ago, other districts have been experimenting with some things that we've learned about. I'm really interested in this idea of basically like in-school quarantining, where we're quarantining kids, but we're not sending them home. We're still allowing them to come to school, but maybe in a slightly different way. I think that has a lot of merit to it. I also want to address, one of the concerns that was raised last night by a parent was that every quarantine protocols and all that kind of stuff, seem to be a moving target. And one of the things that our Tammy Kramer, who's been kind of quarterbacking this for us, said flat out, was like, it is a moving target. I think every time we are faced with a quarantine situation, she goes and has to check the latest, protocols from the state, from the county, because they're shifting them all the time. So, I mean, I think we would love no more than anyone else for there to be, a consistency across that. But they do continue to shift. And one of the things, the benefit of them continuing to shifting is what we've noticed is as the quarantine protocols that we are being given are shifting, they're shifting to in an attempt to limit the number of people who have to quarantine. I think we started with a pretty broad brush when it came to quarantining, and we were basically quarantining everybody. And as the science evolves and everything evolves and our experience evolves at the state level and everywhere else, they're figuring out, okay, this group really doesn't need to, and that group really doesn't need to. So while it's frustrating that it's shifting, I think it's also shifting in the right direction, which is shifting towards less quarantining of less people. And I think that's a good thing, despite the fact that I very much appreciate that it's frustrating that it does seem to change. Yeah. But it's changing on us too. That's the problem. Is the recommendations we are getting are changing almost on a daily basis, so that we have to basically recheck every time.
Yeah. And speaking of that, before I forget, I do want to dispel kind of a myth or a rumor that is being circulated that the school district is getting paid to put masks on kids. And there's a document that's floating out there, and it's being misread. What is actually happening? Well, let me just state for the fact, we are not getting any extra money for putting a mask on a kid.
We are not. I make no claim what happening in other districts. Our district, I will speak as the treasurer, we are not getting money really to put masks on kids or money for really any of our COVID protocols except
for the testing program that we do. So we do have the ability, if parents want to opt into this, their child could be tested on a weekly basis. From my understanding, it is totally random. Your child wouldn't be tested every week. They could be tested every week. What we receive from the state is a reimbursement for the cost of that test. But that, again, is only if a parent opts in to have their child be part of that. And I think it's part of a study is really what it boils down to be randomly selected to be tested on a weekly basis. And so that's what that document is talking about. And we don't even know the details of it, really.
Yeah.
And even our admin team doesn't really understand the full details of where that money's coming from and how it's going to be paid to us, other than that it's a reimbursement for the test, not money for putting masks on kids. So
No,
just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, and I don't think we have reimbursement. We're not even sure. It may only be reimbursement for the physical test, or maybe administrative the test. I don't know. I don't think we're going to make anything on it.
It's like $2 per test, $2.83 a test or something like that.
But it does help us remember we do have testing available at the schools. We have a rapid test. If you may be, if your child is sick or showing symptoms, you'll probably be offered the opportunity to have a rapid test administered right at the school, or have you come if your child is younger and administer a rapid test right at the school. It takes 15 minutes, which is one of those great tools we have to keep kids in school, because if it's not COVID, or then maybe they need to go home for the day. If they're feeling sick, we still don't want colds or flu spreading in our buildings either. If your child is sick, keep them home. But at least we can take care of that in the moment. So I think continuing to deploy the testing is an important benefit that we're able to offer our staff and our students at the district. So those rapid tests, I believe, are in every building.
Yes.
And so if you do get a call, you may be offered that, and it's nice. It saves you a trip to the store, to the doctor's office,
or the doctor,
or something else. So that is the thing. And the randomized testing, I think, will be. I don't know that we fully advertised that yet, but it is another benefit too. My children are opted into that program. I don't think they've been selected yet, but it's a nice little peace of mind, and it helps us keep track of what's going on in the building.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. We really made no decisions last night other than to kind of move in the direction of creating this task force. Again, if you are interested in being a part of it, just send an email to listen@weldre5j.org, and yeah.
And I think on one last word is, I recognize, especially, the masking, I think, has become the most passionate topic for folks, very understandably. We are practicing a very limited form of masking with only doing pre-K through 8. And I want to affirm as somebody who has opted my child into masking from the beginning. My youngest child, who's not able to be vaccinated, we have had her been masking from the beginning. I want to affirm the opt-out process that we have for those of you who would choose to opt your children out of the masking. It's very generous. You don't really need to do much. Frankly, I think if you show up at the building without a mask on, we assume you're opting out. We are keeping track of those numbers. Right now at the grade school level, it's about 15% of the student population is choosing to do that. I want to affirm your choice in that. One thing we heard loud and clear is that parents want choice. Choice exists, and will continue to exist around this in our district. And so I want to affirm everybody's that right continues to exist in the district. We just have what we essentially have done is we've moved from an opt-in to masking to an opt-out.
Right.
But I do want to. I said it last night. I say it again. I do affirm your ability and right as a parent to choose what's best for you and your child.
Absolutely. Well,
I think
we've covered it. Our next meeting is going to be October 6th.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. At Milliken
Elementary School.
Milliken Elementary School. Yes.
So.
Yes. And we did. I think the sound. I went back and watched. I think the sound was a lot better this time. We are continuing to figure out ways to make improvements in that as well. I think the sound was a lot better.
Right. So. Yeah. And again, we ask for a little grace and patience with that, just because when we're doing this touring style of meeting, we can't take all the equipment that we have at the admin building, and our equipment at the admin building really isn't the greatest anyways. So we're trying new things and trying to solve the audio issues. We did have an internet outage like right away in our meeting last night, and but we found out about it. There was thankfully somebody in the audience said, "Hey, you guys aren't broadcasting anymore," so we took a little break until they could figure that out, and then we came back on. So
yeah, I don't believe any public comment was missed. I think if you watch both videos, it happened during the public comment period. I think if you watch both videos, you will have all the public comment.
Yep. So
all right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for your interest and concern in Weld RE5J, which of course I think is one of the best districts going.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Go Riders.